Hi, I'm Barbara Ann Kearney, and I currently live in Holliston, Massachusetts, but my imagination was deeply shaped by the past of my people from the West. And this is a tribute story about my great-aunt Bridget Hannon, who was born in Sligo in 1870. It's called Bridget and the Lost Limb. I had been searching for her for more than 30 years. And when the family photo sent by a newly found third cousin finally arrived in the mail, there she was, first up in the small pile, sitting alone on a park bench on what appears to be a fine and bright day in Schenectady, New York. Many years ago, the story of a missing limb belonging to a lost member of a lost branch of our family had set up in my heart. Bridget, I had been told, had lost a leg in an accident. And as was the custom, the leg was buried in a cemetery in Scranton, Pennsylvania. She had moved away from the area, Scranton, shortly thereafter, and had herself become lost to our line of the family. My great-aunt Bridget takes her place in that stalwart gallery of young Irish women immigrants to America in the late 1800s. One stark figure in a composite portrait of indistinguishable tens of thousands, each one a silhouette, a delicate, fragile figure, backlit by desperate hope and optimism. I was intent on allowing her to walk a noble path, one that I had resolutely created in an inner landscape of my imagination, the place where the ancestors gathered under shadowy, splintered branches of the family tree. No one in my family seemed to know exactly what had happened, so I lent the story of Bridget's accident spare nobility. Trolley accidents were common at the turn of the century. On her way to her position, emptying bedpans at the Moses Taylor Hospital, had she maybe lost her footing while stepping off the car? Perhaps something interesting had caught her eye. Perhaps a young man's gaze had flustered her. But it turns out that after being in this country only a few years, Bridget had slipped and fallen on the ice on a cold winter afternoon. There was no trolley. She was walking the few blocks to a Gallagher wake, kinfolk from the native Clwm Celon in Sligo. The doctors believed the injury was a sprain, confined to a sore and bruised ankle. So they did not set the leg, and gangrene set in, followed by amputation high on the thigh. Amongst the Irish-born neighbors, a bounty of tongues were unloosed, none reluctant to speak of the misfortune that follows when a second daughter is named after a dead firstborn one. And then, tempting fate further, sets her sights on coming to America. Bridget's crutch lies mutely across the park bench rung in this composed moment in Schenectady, circa 1950. Her face betrays the survivor toughness required to live her long life in the shadow of that lost future, to resign herself to a truncated version of that beseeching American dream. Didn't someone suggest that it is the dead who are our nearest neighbors? I take the photo out of the envelope into my prostrate hands, and I sit down beside Bridget, right there on the bench. There it is again, the all too familiar paradox. There's both nothing to say and way too much. A story logger jammed by the ceaseless flow of time, words unable to loosen themselves and find their way into the present. Now, whenever I come up from a long, deep look at this photo, I resolve I will look for her other grave and sit for a spell at each one and wait for the murmuring anguish to rise up. This is a photo of my great-aunt Bridget Hannon, born 1870 and an immigrant to Scranton, Pennsylvania. And my name is Barbara Ann Kearney, and I have a story about her to share with you. And I live in Holliston, Massachusetts, currently.